And now we're going to let people in. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to today's session. Love to see so many familiar faces here in our community. This is making my heart so happy. Happy Thursday. This is going to be a fantastic workshop with Janie. I am super excited about this myself. So what we're going to do is this is going to be recorded. So if you have to leave early, if you want to rewatch it, it will be sent out to you and available to you. Obviously, Janie is in our community, so you can ask her anything at any point and send her an email. But we have so many people here and more joining, and this is so exciting. So I'm going to just introduce Jeannie, and then I'm going to let her take it away. I am not going to share what I just found out about her because she's going to let you find that out for yourself, and it was really fun to figure that. There's literally so many people joining that I'm just giving it a second till everybody joins. You have a packed house today, my friend.
Yay.
So, Jeannie Ward is one of our amazing experts. She is a co-parenting coach, divorce coach, kind of all the things coach, in terms of that stuff. And then she also works on the business side of stuff and helps people, on the divorce industry figure out how to best get the clients and all the good stuff. So she's here today to talk about, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget this great term, motivational interviewing. And I'm going to let her take it away and I'm going to sit back and listen. So, Jeannie, please take it away.
Thank you, Olivia. Hello, I'm Jeannie Ward of Jeannie Ward Coaching, and I'm so excited that you guys are here with me today. It's going to be fun. It can be a heavy topic, but it is a fascinating topic, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Today, what we're going to really be talking about is helping clients move from emotional to intentional. Because as you all know, when we start working with people and even throughout, there are so many intense emotions as they're going through the separation and divorce process, as well as even post-divorce. I work with people years post-divorce, and they are still feeling these intense emotions. So what I have experienced is that the emotions can get people stuck and or not really able to make the best or clearest decisions for themselves and their family, meaning their children. And so I wanted to bring a tool to you today that I have found in my professional and personal life that really helps people get the clarity to make these best decisions. So, for example, if you're an attorney on the call today, you're going to help someone move into from that emotional place into making better legal decisions. CDFAs and people in the finance world making those better financial decisions. Therapists, you're going to help people continue to help them make that behavioral change to more positive behaviors and actions and thoughts. Mediators, it's going to help you get people to make more productive negotiations. And for coaches, if you happen to be on the call, helping people just with that forward movement as to why we're working with them. So today we are going to do a few things, just kind of a high level. I'm going to first share a little bit about me and my practice, what brought me here. Also, then we're going to do a more high level review of motivational interviewing, what it is. And then we're going to actually get into two case scenarios. And that is also what you have on those cheat sheets that was sent out. So you always have it to reference. And we're going to go through some actual statements that you can even apply today after this call of things you can say with individuals that you're working with to help get them to start to move forward. So I'm super excited to get through this. Let's start by letting you know a little bit about who I am. So there are three things that have really hugely shaped who I am. And the first thing is I'm a proud mom. That first picture is myself and my son. He is 19 years old. He was about 7 when my ex and I divorced. And so I've been a single mom for quite a while with him. I'm very proud of who he has become as a young man. And that helps me. It really helps me when I'm working with people and co-parents who are going through this. It just helps me have more of my own real life experience of similarities of what they're going through. The other thing, and you'll see the bottom picture, which is what Olivia was referencing, is I am a former circus performer. So in my hometown where I grew up, we had a children's circus. And I did it from kind of the end of elementary school all the way through the beginning of high school. It was an amazing experience where we were doing, real live circus acts, everything from high wire to trapeze to unicycle. Of which I did unicycle and high wire. But it taught me some really key skills and values. And the lessons that I took away from that was most importantly trust, which, just full disclosure, trust in my personal romantic relationships is still something I struggle with every day, but it has helped me better understand what's important about trust and understanding the other person and what they're capable of, what they're not capable of. I was doing a lot of acts where the person that I was doing it with, if I didn't think they were going to be able to keep me safe or themselves safe, then we needed to come up with a different solution. So that was one huge thing I learned from that. Also teamwork, perseverance and resilience, and just things that I definitely still bring into my life every single day. Lastly, my professional experience in history has really shaped who I am and the work that I do. I come from having a degree in forensic psychology as well as social work. I got to work with mentally ill inmates on Rikers Island in New York City at the beginning of my career. I then moved to Atlanta doing strategic planning with nonprofits and eventually ended up at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta working with their IT and cybersecurity departments. Um, Given all of that, what is even more impactful to me and what brought me to doing this type of work is there are two personal experiences that I went through. A little over 10 years ago was the divorce. And that was the hardest experience that I have ever had in my life. Since then, in early 2000, as well as 2022, I lost my father, my mother, and then my brother. And that was my family of origin. Um, the picture that's here with the circus performers, I'm in the red, it's my brother in the white in front of me, so that's why that picture is so special to me. And I have to say though that the divorce was harder for me to get through than even losing my family of origin. And so I understand how challenging it is when ourselves and our clients are going through this. um, and that's what got me to make a shift in my career to do something that was just more meaningful to me. I then in 2023 created Jeannie Ward Coaching, and I do coaching with adults only, with individuals as well as both co-parents, but I do only work with individuals who have kids. I do want to share with you guys, and I share this with everyone I work with, is that I'm very clear that even though I have a mental health background, I am not a therapist. We are not doing any sort of therapy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financial expert. That is why I work with you all and partner with you all and love to do trainings like this, because you all are the experts in those areas. So what does it do for you when we partner? And I always say that it's not about a well-rounded person, it's about a well-rounded team. And I feel like that's so important. That's why I love Fresh Starts, because they promote the well-rounded team and get all of us together to benefit our clients in the best way. When someone is working with a coach, it really helps those other divorce professionals, mainly because it is helping that person not only calm their nervous system and process and think through scenarios, but it then helps them make better decisions. And then that's just going to help with the work that you're doing with them. It's going to help them hear the expertise and guidance that you're bringing to them. And it's just going to help them and their children have better lives in the current moment as well as long term. So let's now get into motivational interviewing, the real reason why we're here. Um, like I said when we started, this is a tool that helps people move from emotional to intentional. Like I keep saying, this is a time where there is so much going on. I even just had a situation in the last couple of days where it brought back some memories. I had to think about decisions I made when I was going through my divorce. And I sat there thinking, wow, those really weren't great decisions. I realized that at the time I did the best that I could, and it's okay. I'm working with it now, but this is a very, very, very stressful time. So we're going to use this tool to help people move from the emotions and being stuck in the emotions to being able to make the best decisions possible for them at that time. So, for example, sometimes you'll have people who are really stuck in wanting to stay in the family home, right? Now, maybe it's not the best financial decision and or socially the best decision, but they can't get over their emotional connection to this house. Something like motivational interviewing can help you engage with them to help them move away from that stuckness of, I have to do this, to, well, what are some other options? Sometimes even we hear from clients that the other parent is toxic and they don't want the children around that person, and or they don't want to deal with the other parent. Well, again, this tool can help them move from being stuck in don't want to have any contact or they shouldn't be around the kids to thinking through, well, what are our beliefs, what are our experiences versus what am I observing in this person, especially when they're around the kids, and then how can we work with that? So let's get into it. What is motivational interviewing? It's a brief intervention approach that is really utilizing the person's own intrinsic need for change, right? So this came out of work from Dr. Bill Rolnick and Stephen Miller. I'm sorry, Bill Miller and Stephen Rolnick. They, in the kind of in the 70s and 80s, they were working with a lot of individuals. They're psychologists, psychiatrists, and they were working with individuals who they had addictions, and they were saying the right things in the sessions. So the clients were saying, I need to reduce my use and or stop, but they weren't changing their behaviors at all. And so these doctors who created motivational interviewing realized that sitting in a session with an individual who is saying the right things but not making the change, them as the professional just continuing to reinforce why they need to make the change and what changes they need to make wasn't going to help them make the change. So they created this tool and this way of communicating with an individual to help this individual get to their own desire for change and then to be able to actually start making the change. A key part of motivational interviewing is that as the professional, as we're working with an individual, we're helping them identify the discrepancy and or become aware of the discrepancy between what they're saying they want versus what is actually happening, right? So an individual in their world of how this was created was someone is saying, I'm smoking pot daily and I want to stop. My spouse is very angry all the time because they're saying I'm high and I'm not helpful in the house, right? So let's say we hear them week after week saying something like that, but they're not changing it week after week. Well, this can engage that person where, let's say, we can get them talking about other areas of their life where the smoking is impacting them that's more meaningful to them. And then we can possibly come in and help them change. An example of that is a real life example with a client was that a client who was smoking daily started to realize that they can't keep up with their outside soccer practice that they do with some people that are a bit younger than them. They can't keep up, and they were able to eventually tie it to the smoking, that it was impacting their lungs. And that's what initially got them to start thinking, oh, maybe if I reduce my smoking, I'll be able to play better. And that was something that was more motivating to them versus the spouse getting mad at them. So let's talk about the foundation of how this all came about and how we can utilize this, like in that example of getting someone who really doesn't have an intention of changing to wanting to change and then taking the steps to change. This is the stages of change theory, and it was created in the late 70s, early 80s. And this came out of a lot of research around addictions as well, mostly with people smoking. with cigarette smoking, but we can apply this to what we're doing as well, because all of it is about helping someone move through these stages of change. So move from the, as we see on the screen here, the pre-contemplation to get all the way to maintenance. So I'm going to go through each of these stages, and I'm going to give you an example so it can hit home a little bit better. You can wrap your head around it. So let's say an individual, hypothetical individual, middle-aged man is a bit overweight, doesn't exercise, doesn't eat great, but is fine. He's happy. He's content with his life and his habits. He's in pre-contemplation mode, right? No thought of having to make any change in regards to his eating and or working out or activity. So let's say this gentleman goes to the doctor and the doctor says, you know what, I'm really concerned about your blood pressure. Some of the blood work came back that tells me it's important for you to make some changes in your diet as well as activity. Well, that can put this gentleman, the patient, into a contemplation mode of they're now aware that some change would be beneficial to them. They may not have any intention to make a change, but they're contemplating it. They're aware. Next, we want and hope that a person will move into the preparation phase, which is they are now taking steps to get ready to change. For this hypothetical scenario, it might be that this person goes and joins a gym. They're not going yet, but they've joined. Maybe they grab some chicken fillets on the way home from the grocery versus stopping at KFC, right? So some more healthy food choices. Again, preparation. Action is that next step where they're doing it. They're grilling the chicken breast and eating it. They are going to the gym, right? So that's action. That's where we want everyone to get, where they're making this change, and then they can maintain it. I will note that sometimes relapse is included in this list because it is common for individuals to have a relapse, to go back to maybe this gentleman starts eating poorly on vacation or there's some stress, but the goal is that we can always move them back and they can move themselves back into the contemplation, preparation, and action phases. There are a couple of other foundational aspects of motivational interviewing. I'm also just going to say MI. You see that on the screen. It stands for motivational interviewing. But we have this belief of the spirit behind MI, which is collaboration, which means we are here in collaboration with the person we're working with, right? It's a partnership. Also, evocation, that we are helping them pull out their own intrinsic motivation. We're helping them get to the point where they see and want to make the change themselves versus us hoping they make change because we've told them that is in their best interest. Lastly, autonomy, that this person is doing this on their own. And at the end of the day, we all know we're only going to be working with them for, X period of time. Therapists may be a little longer, coaches possibly longer, but usually CDFAs, attorneys, etc. We're working with them just in the time of the divorce. And we want people to be able to maintain and continue these healthy behaviors and positive behaviors long after they've worked with us. So ways we do this is expressing empathy, like I said, developing that discrepancy of what they're doing versus what they want, working with resistance, which is huge. I'm sure all of you experience a lot of people coming in who dig their heels in the ground saying, I'm not going to make this change, as well as supporting that self-efficacy or that autonomy. We do this through some core skills. In the MI world, we say using oars to move the session. So if you think of like rowing, using oars to move the session, and it's an acronym for open-ended questions. So for example, let's say that we have a kid coming home from school and we say, how was did you have a good day? That's a yes or no question versus what did the teacher say that was different today, right? Did you learn one new thing and what was it, right? Makes them answer with more information. Affirmations, reflective listening, and summarizing. And in our examples in a moment, we're going to go through those. In these two examples, we're going to go through 4 steps for each of them. And this is just the 4-step process that we're going to go through. And we'll go through it now. Okay, so example A is a scenario, which you all might be familiar with, Client comes in, and we're going to use some more legally focused examples today. But let's say a client comes in saying, my soon to be ex got us in debt and I am not taking on her debt. Let's say for our scenario, for our hypothetical purpose, that it is a middle-aged man, heterosexual, and it's his wife that has gotten them in debt. Let's say as he's initially talking to you and sharing his situation, he's talking about his own fiscal responsibility and that he's worked so hard in their marriage to keep them financially stable. Well, there's going to be a lot of anger and emotions around her getting them in debt. So he may come into the office saying, I'm not doing it. That's her debt. That's her responsible. I'm not doing it. The goal is helping this person move from that to understanding, okay, I might have to do this legally. I might have to take on some of this debt, to the final point of, I can make a decision of how I want to handle this, right? That autonomy. So, like I said, we're going through these 4 steps. Let's go through them now. The first one is engaging. It's important to just listen and reflect. And reflecting is active. So on your part, it's going to be taking action. And this reflection can be something like a simple reflection of literally just repeating back what that person said to you. So it can be saying to that person, you don't want to take on her debt, right? It might even sound silly and so simplistic because we're just repeating what they said. It is amazing the impact that that has on a person because they now know you heard them, right? Especially if we're saying exactly what they say, they know that we have heard and know their stance. We can make it a little bit more complex in what we're saying back. It feels unfair to be responsible for decisions that you didn't make, right? So we're adding some nuance into this. Again, they know they're being heard. And at this point, once we do start taking some liberties based on what they've said, they might actually not feel exactly that way. Sometimes we say things and then when we hear it back in a slightly different way, we can process it and hear it differently than when we said it. And we can say, well, that's not exactly what I mean, right? So you might get that people say, well, no, this is what I meant. What's great about that is that they're clarifying it for you, right? So this is a moment where sometimes I feel embarrassed of, oh, I didn't get it right. And then I remember, no, it's okay because I'm giving this person the opportunity to educate me and clarify for me where they're at. A double-sided reflection is something a lot more complex where you can explain and start to develop that discrepancy of, on one hand, this doesn't feel like your responsibility. On the other hand, you're here to understand what it means legally for you and to get that advice and understanding from me. Okay, so now we want to bring them to their values, helping them understand what's most important to them. And we're going to get this from what they're saying. So we know this gentleman, fiscal responsibility is important. So we can say something like, similar to what we've just said, you've worked hard to be financially stable and to secure your family. And now it's really frustrating that could all go to waste, right? So we're helping them know that we understand their values, we understand their situation, their state of mind. We're not blaming the soon-to-be ex. We're just stating where this person is at based on what's important to them, and we're starting to get them ready to make the change, rather than a situation where we're saying, well, legally that's probably not what will come out of this, and that could put them on the defense and dig their heels in. So we're going to continue with the evoking, helping draw out their own motivation. And here are some statements that you can use in a scenario like this one. Let's look at number 2, question 2. What concerns you most about the possibility of being responsible for some of it, right? So we're getting more information from them. And we're also starting to introduce the experience of possibly being responsible for some of it, right? Which legally will often be the outcome. Then we can even go further and say, if the law does require some shared responsibility, how would you want to approach that, right? That's the autonomy. We're giving them the not only the autonomy, but the responsibility and accountability to say, okay, how do I want to handle this? But you're helping give the power back to them so that they can think through this and make a decision as to how they would want to approach it. Now, it may not legally work, and you can continue using this tool to help them get closer to what might be legally possible, but it helps them start to become that active partner with you. And our last step is the planning. So how do we help them build this path forward? So we're, as you see at the top of the screen, we are putting them in the driver's seat, right? Even though they're here, they need us for our expertise, and we're going to make sure that they understand where they stand legally and or financially or whatever our area of expertise is. But we're helping them make sure they know they're a partner in this with us. So something like, you may not like the options, but you get to decide how to respond. Or my role is to help you understand the legal landscape so you can make the best decision for yourself and your family moving forward. Right? So it's starting to get that movement of, I'm the expert. I'm going to help you. I'm here to guide you. I've heard what you said, that, you may absolutely not want to have to take this next step, but let's work together so that we can get you to a more realistic outcome. So like I said, it helps take a person from being in that really rigid stance of, not going to do it, to where they can ease up, start thinking more clearly about different options. They become more engaged with you, and it then moves them to the legal strategy and or working on the potential outcomes of their divorce case in a smoother and more quickly, and getting them more quickly. Okay, moving to the next example. This one is where we have an individual that comes in very upset about their spouse drinking too much, and that they don't want the kids with this person, the other parent at all. Let's say in our hypothetical example, we've got a middle-aged man, homosexual. He's married to another gentleman. It's the other man that drinks. Put in another factor. Let's say, hypothetically, this gentleman that comes to you is in recovery, right? So he is sober. It's that much more emotional for him that his spouse is drinking in front of the kids and while parenting the children, right? So there's going to be a lot of emotions. Let's say in this initial meeting, and as you're talking to him, he starts talking about the fears of potential dangers to the kids when they're with the other parent and the parent's drinking. Maybe we're able to hear and or pull out of him if and when this other parent might also be a good parent, right? Let's say when the parent's sober, your client can acknowledge that, yes, they're a good parent. In the mornings, they're great, right? They get the kids up for school, but they start drinking midday, and then it, all breaks loose. So what is really being said here is that our client fears for their children's safety. They have this deep instinct of being a good and safe parent, and they have acknowledged the other parent can be a good and safe parent when sober. So all intel that we can work with. So we're going to go through our 4 steps again. Initially engaging, listening, and reflecting back. So this person knows that they're being heard, that we are with them as a partner in this case, and so that we can clarify and make sure we do understand where they're coming from. So we can say things like affirming their value, which we'll go into in a little bit. You want to make sure that they're safe and cared for at all times, right? Also, that you've seen this parent can be a good parent when he's sober, right? So, and some of these might be direct statements that the person has said, or we're inferring what they've said and repeating that back. Next, we want to tap into their values, again, of what they've shared. So children's safety is a huge value for them, safety of the kids and good parenting. So a double-sided reflection would be something like, part of you wants to protect your kids completely, but part of you does recognize that your spouse can be a good parent, right? These might be and feel conflicting to our clients, but both things can be true, right? The fear and that this parent can be a good parent, right? And sometimes our clients come in just wanting to stay on one side of that, right? They just want to be, in this headspace and heart space of, they're drinking, so they cannot be with the children at all. They're a bad parent, and they kind of want to go just to that side. So we can help them understand that both things can be true, right? So it's gonna help them move from never to if safe. So let's start to evoke and draw out some solutions for them. So we can ask something like, what specifically worries you the most? Again, getting more information about why they don't ever want the children to be with the spouse or the other parent. What would need to be in place for you to feel safe, for you to know your kids are safe, right? And now we're starting to evoke a change in beliefs, behaviors, and their stance of, well, maybe if X, Y, and Z is in place, it's okay for the other parent to be with the kids. Now let's go ahead and plan and build that path forward. So as we all know, there are amazing tools out there, and we can talk to the parent about one, such as something like SoberLink. I know there's other great tools like SoberLink that can help ensure a parent is sober when they have the kids. And we can say something to the client like, would it be helpful to look at at how other families handle that, like structured safeguards around sobriety? Then we can introduce something like SoberLink and help them understand that this creates a layer of safety while still allowing meaningful time with the other parent, right? So all of those values your client presented, which is they need to know their kids are safe and protected, that they're still able to make sure that's in place, right? The kids are going to be safe and protected based on having this tool such as SoberLink. And they have acknowledged the other parent can be a good parent, and it gives the other parent that time as well. So again, two just really different approaches in that your client may come in initially with a huge amount of fear. They might feel dismissed if we don't initially acknowledge the fear and the concerns. If our first response is, well, legally, in most cases, unless there's extenuating circumstances, both parents are going to get parenting time, right? It could, again, make them just dig in their heels and say, well, no, it's not safe, and really get them to sit in their fear. This way, we can pull them out of their fear, move them into their values, let them know they're heard and understood, and that you know what's at stake here. And you also know the law, your area of expertise, you're educating them, guiding them, and then they can become open to more flexible solutions and other solutions. So those are the examples of how we can use this. You've got those in the tools. I want to thank you all for being here and listening, and want to make a comment in regards to those that created this tool, because I have seen video after video of how it can be used. I have used it in my own practice and life, and just see how beneficial it can be. The other thing, I always love my books. I want to share a book, one of the ones I always love to talk about, How to Talk to Kids So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. When I started reading this years ago, to me, this is really just using motivational interviewing with kids to help create that partnership and get the kid to make the change. So it's amazing how this can be used in so many areas of life. I was trained in it years and years and years ago, and have found it so beneficial. If you all want to know more about motivational interviewing, you can always reach out to me. I'd love to talk about it. But also there is their site, motivationalinterviewing.org, where there's always a lot of great resources, and they're updating it periodically, where you can get a lot more information and watch videos on motivational interviewing. So that is everything today that I have time to bring to you. Like I said, please reach out to me if you have any more questions, want to talk about this, want to talk about scenarios, and or have any clients that you feel could benefit from divorce coaching, co-parenting coaching, and using tools like this. So I'm going to hand it back to Olivia now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeannie. That was amazing. So much information. We did have one question in the chat. Um,
Yeah.
so Amber says, I'm curious your thoughts on this from a different viewpoint. It was one of your examples. If she
Okay.
accumulated the debt purposefully, maybe even coerced, and he cannot afford to pay the debt, rather be split, is the motivational still an option here?
Can you say that one more
So
time?
it's
So
in the,
if
can you see it?
she
Why don't you
intentionally,
stop sharing your screen and then you can probably see the chat. Just
okay,
make sure that you
let's,
see my.
um, okay, how do I do this though? I need to go over here. Give me one moment.
No, you're good.
Stop
If
sharing.
anybody else has questions,
Okay,
this is definitely a time we will have some time to ask. There's everybody. Okay, so can you see the chat,
I
Jeannie?
can.
Okay.
You cannot afford to pay the bill. Is MI still an option? And I'm going to, I believe this means that we still have the same scenario, that it's that husband that came into the office and that the scenario now he can't afford to take it. That the question then is, can we still use this work with him? And I would say absolutely, because the benefit of motivational interviewing is that we are working with this person. That's that collaboration piece, that we're initially just trying to figure out what is their stance, where are they coming from, what are they saying they want, right? Um, Part of this scenario that you've presented is that the person is probably going to be saying things around, I can't pay. I need to have some other solutions financially because I can't manage this debt. Right. So there's going to be a lot more fear there versus the husband that's angry about she took on debt and I'm not going to do it. Right. There might be a lot more fear in this scenario of how am I going to handle this? So it still is very applicable that we can then understand that fear, repeat it back to them, get more information around the fear and the realities around why are they fearful? What do they believe they can manage, they can't manage? And then you can start to explore different solutions and options. This is also great in mediation scenarios where it helps people start to think about different ways to negotiate and coming up with alternative solutions to be able to come to agreements versus just what might initially kind of be put out there on the table. So yes, I do think that this could really still help with coming to potential solutions because they're still going to have their stance, which we need to know and work with, and there's still the realities of the legal system and or what we're dealing with, as well as the finances, and it helps us work with all of that.
Awesome. Thank you. Laura had a question in the chat. Is it possible to use this in joint session? I feel like transformational mediation might do this, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
Laura, I would love to know more about when you use the term transformational mediation. I don't know if that's something a little different. I'd love to learn more about that. Um, but yes, I believe that an an edited version, an altered version of MI can be used with both individuals. It's not as direct of the back and forth that you're going to get with just the one person, but I've definitely worked with a lot of co-parents where all three of us are together, and I've been able to use this type of interviewing skill, this type of communication, these questions and or clarifying statements with them. And where I see the benefit of that is that as they're clarifying, right, if I'll say something and maybe I wasn't quite right and they say, no, 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 this is what I mean, that the other parent or that other individual in the room is also hearing it. So they're gaining the same understanding that I am as the professional, right? And I have found when I work with two individuals, a lot of what I'm doing is modeling, right? Whether that's even just, okay, let's take a moment and take a breath. We need to bring the emotions down in the room, or, how if they're getting very heated and mean with each other. A lot of this is helping them understand a different way to communicate. So just by using reflective listening and these tools, the other person is also learning how to use them. So I think there's multiple benefits from it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions before we close for today? That was awesome. Bridget loved it. She said thank you. Very helpful. Um, if you have anything more to add to address clients who are stuck, i.e., wanting to divorce, but not moving forward for over a year, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, that's tough. And I would love to know how how much of the emotional piece comes up and how often. Because my guess is that that's a lot of why it is stuck and not moving for over a year. And again, just full disclosure, I'll share with you guys, my divorce took 2 years. We never went to court. There was never that intention from the beginning. It was amicable. My ex decided he didn't need legal representation. And he never did. I did get an attorney for a little bit to just help me understand what was at stake, but it took 2 years because I dragged my feet because I was so emotionally stuck. I didn't want the divorce. And I just, every time it was like, okay, well, you need to create your budget or you need to do this and that. And this was the attorney telling me the things I needed to do. It would take me months to do it. And it was because of my emotional state. And so I see that a lot, right? I have one couple that came to me as a couple. They had just separated, so they were living in different homes, but hadn't fully decided if they were going to divorce yet or not. Two teenage kids, and this was after a couple of months of working together that the the soon to be husband, soon to be ex-husband, said he stayed in the family home. The mom had moved out, and he said, she just has all her stuff in the attic, and it's so frustrating. So he was just venting, and we started to get into it and realized that for her, it was still having that emotional connection to the family, to the house, to the marriage. And after a session or two, once we were able to kind of parse that out and get her to understand what was going on, she then scheduled a weekend, got in there, got all of her stuff out of the attic, and literally within another probably 2 months, they had the mediation appointment on the calendar, and divorce was final. Soon after that. So that was amazing to me, just how quickly after something that simple was, came up and that they took care of it, that they were able to move forward.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jeannie. Laura put the link in
Yeah,
there for you. Check that out.
I saw that. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
amazing. Does anybody else have questions before we close? That was a fantastic presentation. This will be available and sent out to you again so you can watch it over and over. Um, awesome, awesome. This presentation was great. Thank
Yeah,
you, Jeannie.
thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Jeannie. And of course, you can reach out to Jeannie for client stuff or to chat or all the good stuff.
All the
We
above.
appreciate you guys all so much. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.